Hello, hello, my friends. Here we are. It's Tuesday evening at 6:30, and so I'm happy to be meeting up with you to talk about the secret to finding inner peace in a noisy world. It's a topic that is near and dear to me, and it's one that I feel is so universal, really. And so that could be why you're here. I presume the topic resonates with you, and that's why you're joining me today. So, just as we're getting started, a few little housekeeping details. Since I know webinar technology is new to many people, I just like to point out before we get started that there is a bit of a lag time in the chat. So there is an opportunity for you to type into the chat area on your screen to interact with me. It does take sometimes up to a minute for me to be able to see what you've written there. So if you're sitting there waiting and wondering what's going on, then please bear with me on that one, because technology. So we're here. And so as we're just getting settled in, I'm just going to check in to see who we have with us so far. We've got a few people trickling in now, so thank you for joining us. Just to make sure that we are good to go right from the top, if you could start off by practicing using the chat and just let me know that you're here, maybe give me a hello. And since the topic this evening is inner peace, let's start to ponder what is inner peace? What does that mean to you? So if you feel drawn to share your initial thoughts about inner peace and what that means to you in your life, then that would be lovely to share in the chat. If you're not in a sharing mood, that's totally cool as well. But definitely, if you could give me a signal that you can hear me all right and you can see me and we're good to go on the technology front, then that would be very helpful just to make sure that we are on track. Janet is here. Fabulous. Good to see you. Virtually see you again, Janet. And we've got Christine and Vivian. Thank you for being here. Fabulous. It's nice to get the little message to see the other people on the other end here. I've been practicing speaking into the abyss, into the computer, and it does feel more normal over time. But it is always nice to get a signal from the other side. So thank you very much. I'm so excited that you're here with me tonight. So any initial thoughts about inner peace? What that might mean to you, what it is you're looking for when you think about finding inner peace. Inner peace would mean a calmness and less chatter on my mind. Yes, I hear that one for sure. Yeah, it feels that way to me too. Inner peace could be a feeling, it could be a state of mind, it could be not worrying, trusting life. Yeah, all sorts of different definitions, and I have a sense probably that we would all have variations on a similar kind of a feeling for that. So just sort of planting that seed initially, and we will dive in. When all about you is going a little crazy, how to reclaim some stability. Yes. So I like the way that you pointed out reclaiming stability, because that sort of implies that there's something that we can do. There's something that we can practice in order to get that back. And of course, that's what we'll be talking about today. So right on, right on. Without further ado, I'm just going to share my screen with you. I've prepared a little visual. And as I'm doing that, I see Christine is commenting as well, able to filter out all the craziness around me and focus on what is important. Totally. That reminds me of the quote. If you watched my little video to sign up for this webinar in the first place, you might have noticed I shared a quote. I actually have it right here with me. I've got two of them in my place because I love it so much. One's up in my bathroom and one I just have here at my working area. It says, peace. It does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work, but to be in the midst of those things and be calm in your heart. Yes. For me, that definition really fits like a glove. And again, it's this idea that it's something that we can cultivate. And so that is why we are here. That is what we will explore today. Alrighty, just give me one moment to set everything up properly. So as I'm getting set up here, I wanted to mention as well that I will circle back to the chat every once in a while to check in there. So don't be shy to leave your comments as we go along, and there will be time towards the end to recap. Alrighty, diving in. So today I'm delighted to explore the secret to finding inner peace in a noisy world with you. I mean, the world really is noisy, isn't it? from social media to 24/7 jobs and entertainment and, these to-do lists that never seem to end, it's no wonder that we feel disconnected from a sense of peace on a regular basis. There's like a palpable pressure to keep up. And the thing that makes that so hard is that the pressure is often largely self-imposed. We expect so much of ourselves, don't we? Like I can't tell you the number of times I proudly map out my day, perfectly planning it all in the little convenient time blocks, even color coded sometimes if I'm feeling, ultra organized, only to discover halfway through my day that like, oh shucks, everything takes twice as long as what I budgeted for. And so, once upon a time, I would then get really frustrated with myself. The inner critic would come out and I would feel defeated and criticize myself for being behind. And it could go so far as, ruining a whole day, getting down on yourself about that sort of thing. Luckily, I've, incorporated a lot of the strategies that I'm going to be sharing with you today so that now when that happens, because that part still does, I might not plan enough time for things, but I'm gentler with myself now. So, consequences might await us on the outside. Like sometimes it does matter, whether or not we are able to keep up. But the part that affects us even more is that inner critic, this little voice that lurks around on the inside, waiting for us to be imperfect so that it can point at our failures and flaws and just make us feel crappy. And, as a recovering perfectionist myself, I know my inner critic very well. You might know yours pretty well too. She typically has a particular tone. We all have one, and it certainly makes inner peace complicated. That inner critic just kind of standing there like a gatekeeper. Sometimes we feel, sort of powerless in the face of it all. We long for peace. We set it down. It's almost like we set it down at the end of this imaginary rainbow in our minds. It's like this pot of gold that we'll get to enjoy someday when we've done all of the things, when we've made all of the money, lost all the weight, mastered our lives. But, in the meantime, here we are just waiting on the world to change. And, waiting doesn't necessarily feel all that peaceful. So this is why I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that I'm here. I'm glad we're talking about it, because there really is a better way. Of course, those of you who are on the call already do know me, but just for the benefit of those who might be watching the replay, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Bridget Deneen, and I'm a life coach who helps smart, accomplished women reclaim their time, energy, and peace of mind so that they can feel good now. And I arrived in this space at doing this work because of my personal journey from perfectionism and anxiety to freedom and our topic of the day, inner peace. It was maybe like 14 years ago when I found myself striving to build a life that I thought I was supposed to want. And in my case, it left me actually clinically depressed and anxious with a binge eating disorder and a boatload of shame. So I called a big old timeout on my life and I rebuilt myself and my life in a way that really honors what's true for me and, the life that I really do want to live. I took the time to discover that. I explored many different proven methods for finding inner peace and got certified in a few of them. And so now I'm here to share it with you so that you too can meet the challenges of your life with a calm and open heart. In this webinar, we're going to talk about inner peace. What is it? We're going to define it in the first place. We've done a little bit of that in our intro, so thank you for sharing your perspectives there. We will talk about why inner peace is so elusive. Why does it feel like it's, just beyond our grasp all the time? We're going to talk about our wiring, how our wiring keeps inner peace just beyond our reach. Because it's not a character flaw, it's not you. We're actually kind of built that way. But then we're also going to turn that on its head, and we're going to talk about how we can work with our wiring to reliably experience inner peace, even in the busiest of times. We will meditate together so that we can touch peace in the moment within the next hour. And towards the end, I'll tell you how to sustainably cultivate inner peace so that it can become a new way of being. And full confession, I'll be sharing a little bit about my upcoming course in order to talk about that, in order to address that. The course is a deeper dive into the techniques that we'll be discovering today. And that last part I think is really key, this idea of sustainably cultivating inner peace so that it's a way of being. We learn some new techniques, we practice them, the practice is so important. And then with consistent practice over time, it does actually become embedded. And so we'll deal with that a little bit more deeply when we talk about our wiring and how to leverage it in our favor. And so we begin by asking ourselves, what is inner peace? And you shared at the beginning, which was wonderful. I tend to think of inner peace as a feeling state. It's a way of being. It's when we're relaxed and not worried, trusting the flow of life. We talked about reclaiming. It's almost like reclaiming your center, coming home to yourself. These are all, ways that we can define inner peace. But I'd like you to consider what it is for you, and you might write it down as you reflect, just as a little reminder to your own heart. And so let's pause now and take a moment. And we're just going to sort of throw out a few questions around this topic of inner peace. And I'd like you to just reflect and see what comes up for you. So inner peace. How will you know when you have inner peace? What will it feel like in your body? What will you hear yourself saying or thinking? Allow yourself to see, sense, feel, or imagine the experience of inner peace and all that it entails for you. You might recall a time when you felt that way and visit it in your mind. How would you treat yourself from this place of peace? How would you treat others? Who would you be? And so allow yourself to get a felt sense of what it is that you're after. What would that be like? How would you know? What would the signs be? And that's something that you might ponder throughout our session this evening, and you might ponder it even beyond. And so just feel free to sort of play with that and let it, be the seed that we're planting. Inner peace is so deeply desirable, but for most of us, it does remain elusive. And in my opinion, it escapes us because we're confusing it with outer peace. We're making the peace in our hearts conditional upon peace in our relationships, a sense of control over our bank accounts and maybe our workplaces. And we've really gotten it twisted. We've gotten confused. We think that somehow inner peace will come once we've proven ourselves or completed our work. We strive and we push. And, before we know it, our experience of life is just the opposite of inner peace. It's like straight up stressful. So no wonder we feel like we're sort of dancing at the foot of this pedestal upon which we've laid our dreams of inner peace. And we're just kind of like dancing around, working so hard for it. But that being in that place of work is the opposite. So if inner peace is a state of ease, working in a frenzy to get there, it's a little counterintuitive. So let's take a closer look then at what's happening when we're in this place, when we want inner peace and we're working so hard to achieve it, making it conditional upon external circumstances. And it's almost like we feel on some level that we've got to prove our worthiness, prove that we deserve to have it. And we don't allow ourselves to relax until we feel as though we've measured up in some way. And so, of course, this is stressful. That's basically what we're doing in that situation, is that we are opting right into the cycle of stress. So taking a look at the cycle of stress, it all begins with our perception of stress. So we perceive that something is stressful. And this leads to increased muscle tension in our body. So we're going to look kind of at the physical as well as psychological impact. So we have increased muscle tension in the body, and that's because of fight or flight. So if our body is getting ready to put up or take off, then it makes sense that our muscles are preparing. Our heart rate increases, our blood pressure rises, and our cortisol and adrenaline levels also rise. And those are the hormones, again, that help to prepare us for fight or flight. So Often in modern society, we don't do either one of those two options, fight or flee. Instead, we stay put and we push harder and we strive and we, stay until the work is done and all that sort of thing. So we end up sort of stuck in this place where all of that stuff continues to happen. It doesn't really go away. It's there on a very low level on an ongoing basis. And then when that starts to build up, we can look forward to decreased sleep, decreased patience, less motivation, and less energy. So far, so fun, right? And so, in the face of less sleep, and when we lack energy, do we take a nap? Do we sleep more? Sometimes, for choosing to treat ourselves well. But so often, we just grab another coffee and push our way through even more. And so, at that point, now we've got all this tension in our body. Our heart rate is freaking out. We're not sleeping well. We start to feel physically not so great, and at this point, we're setting ourselves up to experience even more stressful thoughts. On a physical level, we increase our risk of disease and illness. We increase our appetite because our hormones are so out of whack from being in this constant state. And so lucky us, we might even gain weight. Some people lose weight and some people gain. Being in a state of chronic stress actually increases our sensitivity to stress. Awesome. And then we also have increased sensitivity to physical pain or increased occurrence of physical pain. So all of that to me sounds pretty stressful, right? So then what does that make it? Another instance of perceived stress. And so the cycle continues on and on and on. The alarm bells ring again. We perceive the stress and we jump right back into that same loop. So when I started researching stress, what I noticed is that we are very particular about the language when we talk about the root of it. We don't just say, stress in general causes all of these things. We say perceived stress because it is very subjective, and how you look at it does matter. That will impact whether or not your body reacts in a stressed out way. And so because our perception has an influence on our experience, it's one of our entry points for creating something different. Perception lies in the mind, and so we can create a shift by working with our thinking. I'm going to ask you to consider the following common thoughts, and maybe you can recall a time when you were thinking them yourself. I'll invite you to notice how you feel when you think those thoughts, and maybe, again, you can just imagine a time it might even have been today when you thought them. So just imagine yourself thinking or being in a situation where you think, I have to be on the ball. Or, I don't have time to be sick. Or, I can't relax until everything is taken care of. Or, I can't make mistakes. So these thoughts are actual stressful thoughts. If they tend to come up repeatedly in your mind, then probably they do stress you out. And so your nervous system responds to these stressful thoughts and keeps us going in that frantic dance. So somewhere behind these thoughts, in particular, and other thoughts like them, lies a feeling of fear. And fear creates this urgency and intensity within us. In a word, it creates stress. And the amazing thing is that simply by becoming aware of our thoughts, their power, their ability to flip that switch and take us into the stress zone begins to dissipate. And it's truly remarkable when you start to actually live it through the practice. It's really pretty awesome. So more on that later. For now, we're going to delve a little more deeply into our wiring. Our brains are wired for fear because, it's a highly motivating survival mechanism, right? I mean, when there's a threat, we get ready to go. And it's a bit of an oversimplification, but it helps for our understanding. At a very basic level, our reptilian brain fears lack and attack. So basically, anything that would affect our survival: food, safety, shelter, in our modern society, money or our means to get money, so our job. All of these things feel like a direct threat to our survival. And our thinking then mirrors this instinctive fear and leads us to make choices like overcommitting or sacrificing our health and well-being to satisfy other people. This way we feel like we're reducing the threat, and we're wired to take perceived threats to our survival very seriously, right? And in general, of course, that would serve us well. Like if there really is an immediate threat happening, then we want our wiring to react in that way for sure. But if we stop and think about it for a minute, many of the things that on a day-to-day basis we would perceive as dire in this way aren't actually quite as imminently terrible as we originally think them to be. And so that's why it's worth taking a glance at our thinking, being a little more present with what's actually going on in our own minds. But just to give us a sense though, like that is actually how your brain is made. And so it's not just that you in particular are super sensitive. This is the way we're built, and it's in order to help us survive. And that's how we got here as a species. So don't be too hard on yourself, okay? So not only does our brain react in this way, but once we're in that groove, our thoughts have kind of mirrored that fear and we're pressuring ourselves, those neural connections are firing in the brain, we start to look for proof that we're right, reinforcing what we already think. And this is called confirmation bias. And this is something that we all do. We tend to kind of filter out information, only really noticing the things that confirm what we already think. So if we think that we're under threat, like for instance, if I don't stay late, I'm going to lose my job, then we start to notice stories of other people losing their jobs in those situations, instead of noticing maybe the people who aren't staying late and still have their jobs, just as an example. They say that what fires together wires together. And that means that when this whole pattern repeats itself, like the more often we've got like the perceived stress, and then our fearful thinking comes up and we have the stress response and the whole thing gets going, like we saw in that diagram a few slides ago. Every time we go through that cycle, the whole thing becomes more deeply embedded. Or more accurately, it's almost like it becomes the most obvious path for our minds to take. So every time we complete that cycle, that's actually how your brain works in order to make things easy. So the more often you react in a particular way, or the more often you think a particular thought, the more quickly on autopilot your body will react in that way, and your thinking will react in the same way too. So that's how we get stuck, right? Like that's actually how our body works. That's how our brains work. That's how the neurology works. And so, it sounds kind of hopeless at this point, maybe, but there is good news, because I did say at the beginning that we're going to explore how to turn it on its head, right? How do we flip the script? How do we get out of it? Well, we start by calling a time out. We literally start by stopping. The secret to finding inner peace in a noisy world is that we must create it ourselves. There's no magic pill, but the tools I'm going to share with you are kind of the closest thing to a magic pill, because they really are backed by science, and they do work kind of magically if you do the practice. And so we need to make this choice for ourselves to drop beneath the noise outside and to start to get curious about the noise inside in our own minds. So I mentioned earlier that the interesting thing is that just by starting to pay attention, that's where the shift starts to happen. And so that's why I really emphasize the decision to call the time out. Because literally, just by choosing to be still, just by choosing to opt out of the craziness from time to time, and to be quiet and still, and to be with your own experience, to be with yourself, that already starts to interrupt the cycle. So, for instance, it's not important that when we looked at that stress cycle, I'm just going to actually bring up the stress cycle again for a moment. So it's not so important that all of a sudden you never perceive anything as stressful, so that this reaction never happens in your body. You can actually interrupt this process at any point just by making one thing slightly different. So literally a pause, literally waiting 5 seconds, literally taking 10 deep breaths, literally going to bed a few minutes earlier. All of these things are a way of making it less deeply ingrained. So we said what fires together wires together. So we can start to unravel that wiring just by changing one little thing. And so that's how we can that's how we can turn it on its head and start to use our wiring to our advantage, because as readily as we can plug that wiring in and reinforce it, we can call a timeout and we can look up, and that's where the change begins. And so the pause is, so I love to talk about the power of the pause, because it really is so important. The pause is important because we need to relax, like literally on a physical level, we need to chill out. Specifically, we need to activate our parasympathetic nervous system. So we talked before about fight or flight, and that's your sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic is the other arm of your nervous system that is responsible for resting and digesting functions. We can activate what it's called the PSNS for short, because the PNS is something else, the peripheral nervous system, so we call it PSNS. And we can activate the PSNS by deep breathing, by physical relaxation, and by inward focus. And so we can literally work directly with our bodies in order to unplug from that cycle of chronic stress. So the specific approach I'd like to explore with you today is mindfulness. Mindfulness is a meditation technique that activates your parasympathetic nervous system and at the same time actually starts to unhook us from stressful thoughts. So it has the impact that we're discussing here in terms of bringing your body into this place of resting and digesting, but it also gives us an opportunity to work with the mind itself. So I like it because it kind of attacks it from two different angles. And maybe attack is too strong of a word because it's a very gentle practice, but it approaches or deals with it from different angles. So we can perceive the benefits in the body. You physically feel differently than when you started, and also your perspective can be shifted, or your perception. So this is a practice, to me, that is so powerful. It's actually the thing that I used in order to overcome my binge eating disorder and to deal with my anxiety. Some people take medication for those things, and that's, totally fine. It's your choice. It's really important to be on your own journey and to know what works for you. If you are in a place where you do need medication for that sort of thing, this is a great addition to whatever other modes of self-care you're already engaging in. It can be used alone or in conjunction with other things. So yes, this mindfulness practice helps to relax the body and starts to create a shift in our thinking as well. And in case you haven't heard of it, I think that those of you who are on the call have probably heard me talk about it before. And even if you and I have never met before, maybe you already know about mindfulness, which is really cool because it is definitely something that's more popular these days, which is music to my ears. But just as a little refresher or perhaps introduction, depending on your situation, mindfulness is the practice of being aware of the present moment, your breath, the sensation in your body, the activity in your mind, without any judgment. So being right here, right now, just with this open and relaxed presence. It's a way of meeting yourself just as you are, with loving acceptance. Our thoughts will come and our thoughts will go, but we keep returning our focus to the breath. And so sometimes we think of meditation, there are these myths around meditation, like you need to be able to empty your mind, or you need to be good at it, or know what you're doing, or if you don't get it the first time, then it's not working. So I would like to dispel all of that in one fell swoop. It is not important that you empty your mind. That's kind of more like an effect of meditation over time, is that your thoughts tend to slow down, but not always. I've been meditating for 15 years now, and some days my mind is just busy, and that's my experience. I sit there for 20 minutes witnessing the busyness of my own mind, and that's fine. And it's not important to stop your thinking. It's not important to be good at it. So the thing that is perfect is your willingness to try. Every stage of the practice is helpful. So even when you sit there and you feel like you're struggling to have any sort of an experience whatsoever, even that is beneficial, because again, we are switching it up. We are flipping the script. We are choosing to opt into a different experience so that we have different skills available to us, and so that our mind starts to look elsewhere rather than staying in that rut that we talked about in the stress cycle. And so knowing about a practice is super helpful, but the results really come from actually doing it. And so now I'm going to take this opportunity to guide you through a short mindfulness meditation. And so I'm just going to check into the chat before we get going. I think we're pretty caught up. That's okay. Yes. And so we'll take this opportunity then to settle in and to experience this meditation together. It's probably going to go for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, somewhere in that zone. And throughout the practice, I encourage you to just keep an open mind and see what arises for you. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And we'll just see we'll just see what comes up for you. And without further ado, let's dive in. So to begin, just go ahead and make yourself comfortable. You can be sitting on a chair or on the floor. You can even be lying down. And lying down is a good option just if you're not tired. If you are tired, you might fall asleep, which is fine, but it's not meditating. So if you want the meditating experience, then you might want to sit up if you're feeling sleepy. And so take a moment to make yourself comfortable. And if it feels okay for you, I'll invite you to close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. This deep breathing is just helping to calm the body. It slows the heart rate down, reduces our blood pressure, and helps us to turn our attention inward. And so as you settle in, I invite you to sense your own presence. Notice that you're here. Feel the support beneath you, the support of your chair, the floor, the earth. Just allowing yourself to land in your body in this moment. And now become aware of the activity in your mind. Notice if your mind is busy or not so busy. And either way, it's totally fine. Let your mind be just as it is. Beginning to observe your own thinking. And so as you watch your own mind, notice if there are any themes, any patterns in your thinking. Do you think about the same thing over and over more deeply? Or is your mind hopping from one topic to another? Which in mindfulness meditation is affectionately called the monkey mind. Notice the volume of your thinking. Does it seem loud or soft or medium? Just allowing your thoughts to come and to go. And so it's very natural to become caught up in your thinking, spinning a story. And so whenever you notice that that's happening, without any judgment, with care and compassion, just bring yourself back into the moment. Focusing on the breath is a wonderful way to call your focus back into the moment. And so I'll invite you now to notice your breath. It could be deep or shallow. Just notice it however it is. And feel it from the inside out. This natural flow, this coming and going. Be aware of the sensations created by the movement of your breath, the rise and fall of your belly or your chest, the feeling of the air in your windpipe. Notice the temperature of the air inside your nostrils. You might even be able to feel the breath as it brushes across the upper lip or the tip of your nose. Moment by moment, the breath comes and it goes. The breath comes and the breath goes. Thoughts come and thoughts go, allowing everything to be as it is. Noticing your very human experience. Noticing as life flows through you. And all the while, here you are, supported by the earth. And so in your own time, I'll invite you to deepen your breath, bringing your focus back into your environment. You might choose to invite small movements into your body. And eventually opening your eyes. And just take a moment here to digest your experience. Just notice what that was like for you. And taking a powerful pause. And so just like pretty much everything in life, we get the benefit when we practice consistently. You know, we go from learning about something, hearing about it, getting to know more about it, to practicing it. And there comes this tipping point where when we've practiced enough that it becomes our new way of being, it becomes our default pattern. It then is that path of least resistance where our brain and our body goes, all else being equal. And so knowing that it's really difficult to find time to practice, especially when you're left to your own devices. I mean, full confession, I've been a yoga teacher for a long time now. I forget exactly how long, maybe going on a decade. And probably for the first 4 years, I was a yoga teacher who like didn't really practice on my own. You know, I taught classes and I knew the stuff for sure, but carving out time for myself to actually do my practice separately was a struggle. And so I can relate to that if it's something that that you experience, you know, this idea of I want to try these new things. I know they'd be great for me, but it's just, I struggle. That's a very real thing. So I just want to honor that for a moment. And that's a big part of why I've created my upcoming course. It's designed precisely for this purpose, to learn about the practice of mindfulness and self-compassion, to practice it, um, really so that you can cultivate inner peace and meet life's challenges with a calm heart. And in fact, the course is called Inner Peace for Perfectionists, a course in mindfulness and self-compassion. It's so I'm just, if you don't mind, I'm going to just take a moment to tell you a little bit about it. No pressure. If you're not interested, that's fine. I'm glad that you're joining on this call nonetheless. It is a webinar-based course, so we'll meet online just like this for 8 consecutive Tuesday evenings from 6:30 to 7:30. We'll be starting on April 12th, so we've got some time between now and then. You can think about it. Each session, to give you a sense of it, includes a lesson, much like today, where we'll cover some science and psychology. And then we'll learn and practice a technique together. And then there will be time for questions and discussion as well, because that really does help us to integrate the experience. So speaking of discussion and questions, we'll have time for that on today's webinar in a few moments. So please feel free to type your questions into the chat, because as I mentioned before, there's a bit of a delay. And it can be questions or comments, observations, all is welcome. And so when it comes to the course, just like today, all sessions will be recorded and the replay will be sent to you. So even if you can't be there live, you can review it on your own schedule. That was important to me because, like I said, I know it's tough to commit to stuff, like schedules change, life is busy. And so this way, it makes it really easy to continue at your own pace. Along with the live webinar sessions, you'll receive a meditation library containing recordings, 8 of them actually, so that you can fully integrate the practice and so that you can continue practicing like long after the course is over. Hopefully 5 years from now, you'll still be using the recordings. I love using recordings myself because it just helps to give a form to the practice, and it's much easier to sit down for 20 minutes when there's a recording that's exactly that long versus, just kind of sitting and trying to do it without any support. So to give you a sense of what the meditations are, because I'm really excited about them, they'll include mindfulness of thinking, mindfulness of your breath, mindfulness of body sensation. There will be a meditation for befriending yourself, for touching peace, opening your heart. And then we'll go a little deeper into the rough stuff, self-compassion for difficult feelings, because that definitely comes up and we can address it in particular. And there'll be a meditation, loving kindness for your inner critic, because your inner critic needs some love too. And of course, all will be revealed in the course in terms of that approach and why it's so helpful. So I really wanted to make all this stuff relatable, right? So like for perfectionists, I'm a recovering one myself. So for perfectionists or, people who experience anxious thinking, or for those of us who feel that our minds are just too busy, we often shy away from, opportunities to learn these tools because it's almost like we think we've already got to be good at it. Or maybe we have to be a certain type of person, maybe very spiritual. Or, if we're going to do it in a group, there's all these other people that who knows how experienced and awesome they are at it, and that can be intimidating. And the idea of even getting started can stir us up. So I wanted to just drop most of those barriers as much as possible in terms of the format. So, this course really honors the perfectionist in all of us with equal parts of learning, practicing, and optional sharing. And you can explore it in the privacy of your own home at a time that works for you. I've taken this journey myself, and so it comes naturally to me to welcome you with an open heart and mind, like including all your stuff, right? Including all of your challenges, and that's really my zone of genius, as it were. My happy place is to be with people for the difficult stuff, and so know that you're in good hands. It really is my specialty, because you too, even you, can cultivate inner peace. And so we'll learn, we'll practice, and we'll embody the principles so that over time your inner peace becomes hardwired, that path of least resistance that we talked about, because we really can steer our lives toward peace even when everything in the world around us seems to be chaotic. I actually kind of love that. I don't know if you could hear it, but there was a siren in the background during our meditation, and I kind of love that happened, because it's an example of, we don't need everything to be perfectly quiet in order to practice, in order to cultivate this inner experience. And so often we want things to be just so, or else we're not open to it. And so my approach is a little different in that I encourage you to be with whatever arises, the distractions too. And so I really do hope that you'll join me, because in my opinion, this is really the most powerful way to cultivate inner peace. It's a practice that you can do anytime, anywhere. I always recommend practicing it formally at first on purpose, like kind of in a setting like this course, and then you can take it with you and use it on the subway, use it in a meeting, use it any old time that you really just want to have a little bit more of a sense of yourself, creating your own energy rather than, absorbing other people's stuff from the outside. So if you're wondering, is this course right for me? Who should take it? I've just got a couple of examples of people for whom it would be perfect. So perfectionists who want to calm their inner critic, this is for you. If you have no meditation experience, but you're open to learning, this is for you. If you have some experience with meditation, but you're looking for an opportunity to practice regularly, or to maybe learn more about what's actually going on, or to just have a community with whom you're practicing, this is for you. If you're looking for the convenience of a format that really suits you, so you can practice on your own time in your home or in your office, really wherever you are, this is for you. If you're ready to reclaim your time, energy, and peace of mind, this is for you. And it's for you if you'd like to feel confident that you can meet the challenges of daily life with a calm heart. And so, of course, I'm biased, but I think it's for everyone. And at this point, I would like to open it up to questions. So as I'm actually just going to put up the offer itself as well. So you can, if you are interested in signing up and reserving your spot today, I'm just going to load it up, and you can actually click through now. And the investment for the course is $147 Canadian, and the link that I'm going to show in a moment will give you this opportunity to sign up and reserve your spot through PayPal. And so it is my first time presenting an offer in this way, and so I'm kind of trusting technology. Can you let me know if you see a little picture of me meditating on your screen with an offer that says "Inner Peace for Perfectionists, sign me up"? If you could let me know in the chat if you're seeing that, that would be great. I hope you do, and I'm not sure if maybe you have to click to a different spot. But at the same time, as I'm checking to see if that's happening, more importantly, let me just show you my face again. More importantly, I wanted to take some time now to be with you to address any questions that you have about the session this evening, and whether it's questions or you want to share something about what the experience was like for you. I always love to know, what resonated with you. What are you taking away? Oh, you see it. Thank you, Katie, for confirming. Excellent. So yeah, let me know what resonated with you, if there was something that surprised you, if you had an aha moment. I would really love to hear what arose for you, in addition to any questions you might have about the stress cycle, about mindfulness, about the course. Any and all of the above is totally welcome. And so I know there's a bit of a delay, so we'll just kind of we said there's power in the pause, right? So this is my opportunity to practice what I preach and to just give technology a moment to catch up with what you might be sharing now. And of course, if you don't have questions, that's okay too. Or if you're not in the mood for sharing, that's always fine. There's never any pressure, but I would love to hear. And also, this is a great opportunity, you can kind of pick my brain. So if you have your own meditation practice and you just kind of want to bounce an idea off me, or if you're wondering about something that's been coming up for you, then you're more than welcome to ask or to share. Anything under the umbrella of this topic of inner peace is fair game. Okay, Janet, thank you. So the meditation was calming, to focus on the breath. Yeah. So that was sort of a little taste of the styles of meditation. That was sort of like an introduction to what mindfulness meditation is like. And so in the course, each week will be a little bit different, because different meditations sort of play differently or resonate differently, not only for different people, but on different days at different times, depending on what you're going through. It's nice to kind of explore a bunch of different approaches. So that was sort of just a little bit of kind of wading into the water, a little bit of mindfulness. Sorry, I'm just going to grab some water for a moment. Christine loved learning the biological background of it all. Yes, okay. So I love geeking out, and I'm particularly excited when, in my case, I learned the tradition first. So I studied yoga, and I just wanted the practices because I was like really burnt out and super anxious and, not in a good place. So I wasn't really wanting to learn more about things, but I basically needed something to really help me in the moment. So I just dove into the practices and I went for it. But then I kind of geeked out afterwards. So I did my yoga training and all of that. And even in yoga training, they don't often, depending on the teacher, they can be very traditional and esoteric, and other times more scientific. So I loved that experience. But then I also love finding out when, Western science reinforces stuff that is already present in Eastern practices, especially the ones that really resonate with me. So that's part of what I'm going to continue to share with you as well on the course. Vivian says, the siren in the background, thoughts change from irritation to gratitude towards emergency care workers. I love that one. That's something I've been practicing too. If you're driving and everyone needs to pull over, it's easy to just have this autopilot of, ugh, I'm going to be late now. Ugh. And instead I think, I hope the person's okay. And even just that little shift has made a difference for me. So thanks for sharing. Katie says, realizing that inner peace can occur when things are not perfect is something I forget. Don't we all, though? Katie, don't we all? It is normal to forget, because that's also the stress response, right? We get hooked into that thinking. And when we're in that stressed out place, we don't have as easy access to our skills. And that's why we want to hardwire these skills into the body so that they arise naturally to meet the challenge. So we don't have to search for it. And that's really the benefit of having a formal practice. When I first learned these techniques, I was doing a formal practice twice a day, and then like an informal practice, like mindfulness while brushing my teeth or doing the dishes or something like that, at least once a day as well. And so I did that for a long time because, again, I needed a lot of help. I was, pretty, I was not in a very good place. And so I really dove into it very deeply. It's not important that you meditate twice a day formally and once informally, but it definitely does add up. They've shown that as few as, 5 hours of practice, just in general, 5 hours of meditation practice already starts to create a difference in your brain. And so not all in one day, it can be spread out over a month. It can be 5-minute increments. But yeah, it really is something that we can work on internally without needing anybody to be nicer to us, without needing to land our perfect job, without needing somebody to stop pushing our buttons. We can kind of manage our own experience, which I love, because that is self-care in its essence, right? Is our ability to meet our own needs. Christine didn't even hear the siren, so you were able to filter it out. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Vivian's asking, do you use the same meditation practice, or do you vary your themes for your own practice? So I vary my themes. I also practice different styles of yoga as well. So sometimes I'll use a Kundalini meditation, which is very prescriptive. It's like, do it for this length of time. There's a mudra, something you do with your hands, maybe a mantra, a particular line that you repeat. These days, I've really come home to my first practice, which is mindfulness meditation. And sometimes I follow my own voice, recordings that I've done for other people. I'll probably follow the ones that I create for this course as well. And sometimes I look to other people's recordings out in the world. If you've been with me before, you've heard me mention Tara Brach. Her website has some great meditations there. And yeah, so I definitely do vary it from one session to the next. I really kind of let myself be drawn to whatever practice I feel is relevant for the day. And Katie says, yes, waiting for perfect. Ugh. Vivian says, I remember you coaching me to feel my feet on the ground when I was overwhelmed. By doing that regularly, it's easier to come back to it when I really need it. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So that's part of what this practice will, or this course will involve as well, is, when you're all caught up in the busyness of your mind, when you're feeling really stressed out, how do you actually, come back into your body in the moment? And the technique that I share often in my coaching is this concept of feeling that connection between your feet and the floor. And we used it a little bit at the beginning of the meditation today. You you might remember me saying something along the lines of, notice the support of the chair beneath you, notice the support of the floor and the earth. And so, that's actually a practice that is borrowed from, I think he's a doctor. He must be a doctor, Mario Martinez. Yes, I believe he's a neuroscientist of some description, and he talks about this feeling of safety that we need on kind of an instinctive animal level in order to be able to relax. And so that's where we start, is from this place of recognizing our own safety in the moment. So knowing that the earth is holding you up is one way to connect to that sense of safety. Slow, deep breathing also helps to convince the animal that is our body that we are safe. And so we can start to open up, we can start to relax. So yeah, thanks for reminding me of that connection of feet to the floor. And we'll definitely go more into the mind-body connection and being present with sensation in your body and all that that entails throughout the course. So any other questions or anything else that you wanted to share this evening, whether it's something that came up in your practice this evening, something that comes up in general when it comes to your efforts to cultivate inner peace in your life? I would love to hear. And so I just wanted to say too, if you can hear the fan on my laptop, sorry, it's my laptop is kicking in overtime here to keep us going, but hopefully it's not too distracting. I'm not sure how loud it comes through, so please bear with me on that. Any other questions? Any other comments? So as we're creating some space for that, I'll also say, if you enjoyed tonight's session and you have a friend that you think might benefit from it, I'm doing another one on Friday, the same sort of deal happening on Friday. So do feel free to share it with colleagues or friends, anyone that you feel might benefit from it for sure. I'd be happy to have some more people joining in. The more the merrier. I always like connecting with new people and sharing these practices as far and as wide as I can. Katie says she feels more peaceful in a warm bath. So very cool. Interestingly, that also has a lot to do with the animal that is our body. And it has, the reason that water has that impact on our nervous system is because of when we were in the womb. So this idea of being surrounded in water, this buoyancy, this kind of a fish-like movement that our body can then have when we're in water, really takes us back to where it all began. And we can have that sense then of being contained, that sense of safety. And so again, I find it interesting to notice how, notice what the reason is behind it, at the same time as noticing your direct experience. So very cool. Very cool. Any other questions, ponderings? All right, well, I'll leave the chat open for a little bit afterwards. And if you're watching this on the replay, then it should be set up so that you can type in a question and I'll get an email. So you can feel free to, even if you're not with us live on Tuesday at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, you can feel free to type in a question, anything that came up for you, or your observations in the spirit of sharing. If you want to share behind the scenes just with me, then my door is open. So please do feel free. And I will, hopefully it's okay with you, I will give you a little bit of a reminder, some more opportunities to join me for the course over the next month. And if it's something that interests you, I would love to have you on board. It's going to be very magical. I've been leading mindfulness in a clinical setting for a while now, and it really is nothing short of amazing. And I would love to be able to share the practice with you as well. So thank you all of you for being with me and with each other this evening. For those of you watching on the replay, thank you for taking the time out for yourself to join in and to receive the benefits, get some new information, maybe some new strategies, a moment moment of peace for yourself. And I do look forward to connecting with you soon. I'm also available for one-on-one coaching, so if that's more your style, then please don't be shy. Feel free to reach out, and I would love to connect with you there. Thank you so much, my loves. I am, again, very humble and grateful to be with you. Thank you for letting me into your computer, into your life, and I hope to connect with you soon. Namaste.